Welcome to the AIPC interviews, where I talk to members of the Artful Eye photography community, among others, about them. It is February 26, 2020, and on this episode, my guest is a familiar voice for some, co-host of the Tiny Shutter podcast, Matt Hoffman. Hey, Matt.
Hey, Greg. How you doing?
Good. Long time no talk.
Yeah, actually, it kind of has been, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I had a conflict with the last Tiny Shutter episode and wasn't able to be on, but I will be on the next one. But it's good to be with you now, talking iPhone photography.
Yeah, awesome. I'm glad you could make it. Just a little note that I had another guest lined up for this evening, but she's not well, so Matt decided to jump in and save my butt. So that's awesome. And
that's what friends are for, right?
Yes, absolutely. And actually, I've reconfigured some audio stuff, and our other co-host of the Tiny Shutter crew, Dave Podner, saved my butt today. I called him at lunchtime, and he was able to give me a little bit of assistance too. So it's all working out.
There you go. So the Tiny Shutter folks were kind of useful sometimes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I guess we'll begin. The first thing I would probably ask you is, how did you get into iPhone photography?
All right. Well, I've had a love of photography in general for quite a while now, probably since my early teenage years, I would say. It started out with film photography and eventually, worked its way up into digital cameras, digital SLRs and whatnot. And eventually I ended up getting an iPhone 4. And honestly, I feel like this is going to be a common theme in this podcast series when you ask this question at people. But right away, I noticed that the camera on the iPhone 4 was unlike any mobile phone camera that I had before that.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, it was just, really amazing picture quality. And it was just fun to take pictures with it, just to know you have this, small little device in your pocket and you could take some, pretty decent looking pictures with it. And then I think what really sent it over the top for me was Instagram. It wasn't very long after I had got the iPhone 4 that Instagram really started to gain in popularity, and I got the app and was like, oh yeah, this is cool. And at that time, the filters that were in Instagram were pretty popular. Things like Hipstamatic was starting to come on board, and the whole getting that like film look or the grungy kind of old timey look to the photos that was really popular.
Yeah.
And I got sucked into that too a little bit. It was fun to play with the filters on Instagram and some other apps, and then just being able to have this platform to share instantly, I on one device to, snap a picture, to edit it, and then to share it with everybody in a matter of, minutes, really. That was just an earth-shattering thing to me. Up till that point, my photography was kind of limited to, shooting with a DSLR, wait till you get home and get to the computer and upload the pictures and then, edit them with whatever program. I'm an Apple fanboy, I guess you want to call it. So I just use an Aperture. And if you're editing RAW, there's a lot of parameters to tweak and everything. So it just takes a lot longer, and and then all the photo sharing was less
Convenient.
so yeah, social, I guess. I don't really know. Like, I, when I started in digital photography, I mean, I think I was emailing pictures to people.
Oh
you
yeah.
know, like, I'd come back from some cool trip I went on in Arizona or something, and then like email pictures to my parents,
Yeah.
and then eventually, upload them to Flickr. But, if you're not into photography, if you're not a photographer, or no one's really on Flickr. I mean, there's lots of people on Flickr, but just, I wanted like my friends and my family to see these pictures. And, with the iPhone, it just became so much more easier, and just the popularity of the apps that kind of started to come along, like, Facebook obviously helped, and then, Instagram, that was a big one.
Yeah, I think Instagram is pretty much solely responsible for the mobile photography movement that it became. It wasn't just a
I
fad.
would agree with that.
Yeah, yeah, it certainly wasn't just a fad. It was a movement. It was a global movement too. I mean, there was people all over the world posting to that platform.
Yeah. So, thankfully, the Instagram look, the filters and whatnot, have mostly, you know, been a fad.
Yeah, yeah, I'll agree with
Uh,
that.
yeah. So actually, let me ask you. So while we're talking about Instagram, um, I know for the longest time I treated Instagram as purely a mobile photography sharing platform.
Hmm.
So when and at first it really seemed like that's what it was. Um, and then, photos from DSLRs and stuff started to creep in, and I hated that. I didn't want it to be that. I wanted it to be mobile photography. And I think, it's because it felt new and it felt special. Um, the fact that people were just getting these awesome pictures, and kind of the photography snobs were poo pooing, the whole idea of taking like any kind of serious photo with a mobile phone. Um, I wanted Instagram to just be that showcase for mobile photography. So I actually got upset for a little while when I realized this isn't all mobile photography. This is photography from any camera. But I I know, I guess me personally, I moved past that. I'm a lover of all types of photography. So, um, I just like to look at cool pictures regardless of what camera they're taken with. But I don't know. Did you feel that way at all? Like you just wanted it to stay mobile?
Not necessarily wanted it to stay mobile. I was a little surprised to see some DSLR stuff come into it. Um, but admittedly, I did gravitate towards mobile photographers on Instagram in my early days
Hmm.
because I was, I was bound and determined it was going to be a thing, right? Um, I was probably the only one really amongst my friends, my local friends around here that really got serious into mobile photography, and probably still am the most serious about it of all of them. But even though a lot of them are using their phones now, but as I would say, as a secondary camera to their traditional cameras. But now, like you, I've gotten past that, and that stigma or whatever you want to call it, and I just embrace all kinds of photography. Like heck, if you want to, if I see some pinhole photos that are stuck on a wall, I'll stop and look at them because I think they're cool. So yeah, I'm in the same
Yeah,
boat as you,
sure.
right? I just am like, oh man, there's some awesome DSL are like DSLR photographers on Instagram now, and I follow them and I comment on their work and so yeah, like I mean, I'd say we're very similar in that aspect.
Yeah, I honestly I could echo what you just said. I mean, I think I started out, with seeking out people that were doing cool things with their iPhones or
Yeah.
whatever phone. But yeah, now I just follow whoever takes awesome pictures, regardless of what sort of camera they're shooting with.
Yeah. You don't care how the sausage is made. You just want to see the end product.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. So, okay. So you started with the 4. Um, Kind of fast forward today. What are you shooting with these days?
So right now I have the iPhone 10. Um, I will probably upgrade this next go around here.
Yeah.
So probably before the end of this year, I will have whatever whatever the next new thing is with 16 cameras on it. And,
Yeah. Yeah. I guess it's probably going to be called the iPhone 12. That's what I've been hearing anyway. Of course, this last one was the 11, so it only makes sense. But so form factor, the 10 is really like mid-size, I guess you could say, and nowadays. Well, not even that. It's actually one of the smaller ones, isn't it?
yeah, I suppose it is. So before the 10, I had the 6S Plus.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went 4, 5, 6S Plus, 10. So the 6S Plus, I loved it. I loved having the larger size. I love that the screen rotated, similar to like the way an iPad does.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and it just had some functionality that the smaller phones didn't have. And when the 10 came out, at first I was a little bummed that they didn't have like a plus size, but I was like, well, it's all screen. So yeah, I could get a 7 plus or whatever. Um, but the screen on the plus size phone is actually smaller than the screen on the 10, even
Yeah.
though the physical size of the iPhone 10 is smaller. So I thought, I'm kind of digging the whole idea of having, this full screen. The Face ID is intriguing to me. Even though it felt like I had just gotten used to the fingerprint
Yeah.
reader.
Yeah.
Uh, and so I've had this 10 since shortly after they came out, and this thing's rock solid. It's a champion, and I think it still takes really, really great pictures. In fact, I remember shortly after I got it, um, stopping at a state park here in Ohio on my way home from something, a work meeting or something. And I climbed up in this fire tower, and I took like a few pictures up in the fire tower, and like one of them was kind of like looking down like at my car that was parked like close to the bottom of the fire tower.
I remember that.
And and I texted it to you and maybe a couple other people, and I specifically remember you commenting on how crazy sharp and crisp that photo was.
Yeah.
And we were, I think I was the first one of our little like tiny shutter group to get a 10, and we were all just blown away by the image quality. And and now we're sitting here, and it's a little over 2 years later, and I'm kind of jealous a little bit of everybody with their iPhone 11s and 11 Pro.
Yeah.
With the image quality coming out of that and the capabilities that they have with the iOS 13. Is that what that's it? That's the iOS we're on, right?
Yep.
13.
13.3 point
Um,
something.
Yeah, so the whole the night mode and everything like that. That I can't wait to dive into that.
Yeah, that's quite the jump though too from the 6S Plus to the 10. There's a lot of technology that was upgraded over the years to get to that point even. So, I mean that was like me going from I had the 6 and then I got the 8 Plus about the same time you got your 10. And I found a real noticeable difference in the image quality there.
Yeah, yeah. I mean everything they're doing with now I forget what they call them, but the deep pixels
Oh,
to kind of keep
deep
light from
trench
spilling out.
isolation or something.
There you go. Yep. I think that stuff, while it sounds goofy, and I'm sure a lot of people kind of roll their eyes when they hear Phil Schiller talking about this stuff, but I think it does make a difference.
Oh yeah.
And you know, um, I think Apple in the last 10 years or so has done more for photography than just about any other company out there, really.
I think so too. They've got so much technology built into, like, the camera's taking pictures before you even hit the button. And what did they say in the last keynote at WWDC? I think it was taken, or maybe it was the iPhone release back in September. The iPhone 11 Pro camera does something like 3 trillion computations per second.
That's unreal.
When it takes a photo. So that's just crazy. So, speaking of cameras, do you have a favorite camera app that you use?
Um, yes and no. So I'm one to kind of bounce around to different things. Um, I am, however, a very giant fan of the Halide app, or
Yeah.
Halide, however you want to say it. Um, I've been using that almost exclusively for quite a while now. Um, I am dabbling with Filmic's First Light app,
Hmm.
which I do like. I'm just not sure if I like it better. So we'll see. I have to keep playing with it because I've only used it like a handful of times, but it is a very nice app. And it's funny because talking about these camera apps, I could kind of see how my photo taking has sort of progressed with the iPhones as it pertains to the photo apps. So there's nothing wrong with the native camera app, and I use that a lot as well. Especially if I'm shooting portrait mode or something like that, I just find it easier just to bring up the native camera app. So I do use that quite a bit. But it wasn't all that long ago that uh, if you had asked me this question, my favorite camera app would have been something like True HDR or Pro
Yeah.
HDR X or something like that. I use those apps so much because not really because I really wanted the grungy HDR look, but the dynamic range of the sensors on the phones wasn't as good. And then obviously the operating system wasn't as good, or the chip in the phone wasn't as good, so it just didn't have the power to bring out the details like it does now. So I would use these HDR apps to try to get a better dynamic range out of my photos, and then kind of have to go in and do a whole bunch of work, after the fact in other apps to at least make it look, like a photo and not like some weird, grungy
Yeah.
painting or something.
Yeah, like
You
clown
know,
puke.
yeah. But I mean, now, ever since we had the ability to shoot in RAW,
Hmm.
there's, and I don't shoot in RAW all the time, but um, if I'm trying to make like some nice landscape photo or something, it's really nice to have the latitude that comes with a raw file and be able to, you know, tone down the highlights if they're too bright, or tease a little bit more detail out of the shadows and stuff. So that for me, there hasn't been a need, to shoot with any of those HDR apps. In fact, just like a week ago, I was like looking through all the apps on my phone because I'm one of those people, I download apps and then they just kind of accumulate and I
Yeah,
never
yeah.
make it off my phone.
Yep.
And I have a folder of, the folder is just called cameras. So it's different camera apps. And I still had like 3 or 4 of those HDR apps from, several years ago in
Oh,
there. But I
really?
was like, oh, wow. Yeah. So I finally took them off my phone. So, but I mean, I've still got 13 different, no, I have 15 different camera apps on my phone still.
Wow. Oh, I thought I was bad. Actually, I went through mine and took some of them, the ones off that I don't really use as well. Um, but to this day, I don't have 15 camera apps. That's for sure.
Well, I've got 13 in the folder, and then there's 2 that aren't.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
crazy.
Like halides on my little home row.
Yeah, yeah, same here.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I
Well,
don't know.
here's an
They're fun to.
interesting little tidbit for you, and you maybe already know this, but it's only come out in the last few days, to my knowledge, and that is iOS 14 may give you the opportunity to select default third-party apps.
Yep, I've been hearing about that, and that's very exciting.
Yeah, like it would be so cool to be able to hit that camera icon on your lock screen and have Halide just open.
Yes. Yeah.
So I'm
And
hoping.
that's a feature that I've been wanting for a couple years now, at least.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think that would be a game changer with the iPhone. I don't think Apple has to worry about it. I mean, if anything, it's going to get more people to buy the iPhone because there's so many people that won't get it for, that very reason. You can't change your default apps, whether it's a browser or a camera or whatever. So that's interesting.
I,
So,
th- I think I think you could change a default browser, but other than that,
oh, well, maybe, I don't know. So one thing that I really love about your work is your editing and the way you do stuff. We've collaborated a couple times on an image or two, and I just absolutely love what you do with them. So
no,
it
thank
would
you.
probably take quite a long time to describe everything that you do in your process, and I know it's probably some of it is it just happens out of the blue, but maybe just kind of give the listeners an idea of your process of editing an image.
Okay. Um, so you know how like when other, like, I don't know, let's say like famous photographers, if they have a podcast or something, they do a question and answer session,
Mm-hmm.
and someone will write in and say like, hey, I'm in this situation, and what do you recommend I do? And then the famous photographer inevitably says, well, it depends.
Oh yeah.
And that's kind of the situation with my with my editing.
Yeah.
Um, so so my edits could really be pretty basic and simple, or they could be like over the top, absolute craziness. But I'll go somewhere in the middle here. So a lot of my photos um, right now get edited with the app Polar. That's Polarr.
Mm-hmm.
And Polar is a fantastic raw editor and just general editing app. And one of the reasons that I really like this, and this might sound kind of silly to people, is that it's available as an extension within the camera roll. And the reason I like that is because when you edit that way, um, it's basically just applying the changes to that original file, but in a non-destructive manner. So that way you don't end up with like a whole bunch of copies of the same photo in your camera roll. And then, if you decide you don't like what you did, you could always just revert back to the original and start over.
Right.
So Polar has been fantastic. I've been trying like other apps. I mean, I've used like Darkroom is a similar app to Polar, which Greg, I think recently you said something about them being in cahoots with
Yeah.
Halide,
Yeah.
because you could take a photo with Halide and then open it right in the Darkroom app to edit it.
Right.
But with Polar, the biggest area that I spend time in is when you're kind of in the general editing, for sharpness, color, contrast, all that fun stuff. There's a tab in there called Light, and that's where you would adjust like exposure, brightness, contrast, and everything. But in particular, if you shoot RAW, this is the app that I find treats the highlights and the shadows the best without making them look weird. Some of the other RAW editors I found, if you're really trying to tone down highlights, they start to get gray and weird looking.
Yeah.
And with Polar, it just doesn't do that. It just always looks good, even if it can't fully recover because you've just blown it out, completely, and there's nothing left to recover. It doesn't try to do anything. Then it just makes you accept the fact that sorry, that part's going to be white.
Yeah. Yeah. You just overexposed it. Period.
Yeah. So that is literally like my favorite thing about the app and why I use it a lot. But it also has like other features that I really like. Like you could really dive in deep to play with colors. They've got the whole like hue, saturation, luminance thing for like pretty much any color you want. You could work in layers, and there's brushes and gradients, and there's other like creative overlays and sky replacement, all kinds of crazy stuff in Polar. So I just find it to be hands down my all-time favorite editing app. Before that, for a long time, Enlight was my all-time favorite. But Enlight doesn't even hold a candle to Polar, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So
And Enlight, they've changed to PhotoFox, have they not?
they have. I still use their original app because I just really don't want to pay any kind of subscription. Like, I don't know. I find their subscription models to be a little outrageous.
Yeah.
I understand the point of subscriptions. I'm not opposed to subscriptions, but I just don't want to pay their prices for their products. And PhotoFox is different than the original Enlight. If they had kind of just said, hey, here's Enlight, we're going to keep improving it and making changes to it, or not drastic changes, but improving it, adding capabilities, and we need to go to this subscription model to make that stuff happen. I might have been more accepting, and probably have stuck with it. But PhotoFox is, in my opinion, it seems like it's more geared towards maybe like a mobile phone artist, and not quite as much a photographer.
Yeah.
It can do all the photo editing, but it's just got a bunch of stuff that, like, in a million years, I'll probably never touch or use, and so it's not worth paying for, to me.
Yeah. So you got Polar, and if you were to do like a middle of the road edit, how many different apps would you use besides Polar or in conjunction with Polar?
So another super duper favorite app of mine is Mextures.
Oh, yes.
Mextures has been around for, gosh, like a super long time now. But if anybody isn't familiar with Mextures, it's basically an app that allows you to apply like overlays, color effects, and to some degree some texture effects to your photos. But it offers a lot of different. It offers a lot of customization and adjustability. Is I guess what I'm trying to say.
Hmm.
Um, so, in addition, they have like different packs of gradients and textures and film simulations and light leaks and all that kind of stuff. So you could apply that to your image, adjust the intensity. You could change the blend mode, which is a huge thing for me. I love having the ability to do that because blend modes are everything when it comes to how an overlay or a color plays with the highlights and the shadows in an image. So being able to change that is fantastic, and there's not like an overwhelming amount of choices in the app. There are a lot, but if you don't see what you're looking for, you can build your own looks in the app, and then
Oh,
they
yeah.
even have what they call formulas. So there's lots of formulas that are just like in the app, but you could even like download um, like different looks and stuff, which is pretty cool. Um,
So they're kind of like
and then
presets.
yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But you could still go back in and like tweak them,
Oh, right.
which is
Okay.
cool. So
Yeah.
it could be like a starting point of sorts. And then the other thing that is also big, in my opinion, is that it works in layers. So if you apply a light leak, and then you would work on a new layer to apply another texture or gradient or whatever you want to do to your picture. So that way, if you're doing something and you messed it up or it doesn't look right, you don't have to start over from scratch. You just delete the layer you know,
Yeah.
that's not working for you.
Yeah, that's right.
So yeah, so mixtures, love mixtures. Um, and then there's like a handful of other apps that I use from time to time. I'm very sorry, my voice is getting scratchy
Yeah,
here.
it's okay.
Um, I do kind of a lot of black and white work. And right now, my very favorite app for black and white is an app called Carbon. Um, and I use it mostly as a black and white editor, which is really what it started out as. But it can work with your RAW files and your JPEGs, um, and it's got a bunch of black and white filters, which are more or less just presets, but you could apply really any one of them, and then you could go into the edit functions and again tweak the look of that. Adjust all the contrast and um, the highlights and shadows and all that fun stuff. But they have like other stuff in the app too, like toning presets and duotones and textures and borders and all that fun stuff. But
Yeah.
mostly I just use it for the black and white editing.
Yeah, because a lot of those are in-app purchases, right? I
Uh,
think.
I think so. I
Yeah.
think they are. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. They may be.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure I bought a few of them uh, when I first heard of Carbon. I tried it and I thought, oh, this has potential. So then I started looking at some of the packs and whatnot, and I think I bought a couple packs in it. So yeah. Um, okay, so your black and white stuff, you don't do a whole lot of that, I don't think, do you? Like it's mostly color work anyway, right? So I would say
Yeah, yeah, it's
Polar
probably
and Mixtures would be
70%.
your biggest use cases.
Yeah, right now definitely. And I like to try new things, so every so often, a new app catches my interest, and I go off on that for a while, and
Yeah.
you know, um, But I'm telling everybody, if you haven't checked out Polar, you really should. One of the things I didn't mention about Polar is that it does have like filters and stuff, if that's your thing.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to learn how to do a certain look, some of the filters and stuff are playable, which basically means that in addition to just applying the filter, it will actually play almost like a video of it applying each effect, like each step of how that filter was made. So
Cool.
it's almost like it's really super cool. So it's a good app for like learning, about editing and different techniques and stuff.
And they have an iPad app, I think, and they also have a Mac app. Probably as
Yes.
separate purchases, of course, but yeah. So that's a pretty powerful app, and it doesn't get a lot of. For me at least, I haven't heard a whole lot about Polar. Like, not like I have Darkroom. Maybe it's because I'm watching the Halide guys on Twitter and Instagram and whatnot, but. Yeah, I mean, I do have Polar, and I'm going to have to get looking at it again because I've been shooting RAW a lot more. Like I'll shoot RAW and JPEG just for the sake of having both types of file. But I'm gonna try doing a RAW file in Polar and see how I like it.
Yeah, I think you will. It's a fantastic app, and they had an update today, which I think was just bug fixes. But they keep teasing for a handful of updates now. They've been teasing that new features are coming soon.
Oh,
So I'm super excited.
yeah, interesting. And hopefully, it's not one of these new features that requires the 11 Pro or something like that. But
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that.
come this fall, it won't be an issue anyway for you. So,
That's
okay,
true.
well, that's cool. I mean, if you want to see some of Matt's edits, just go to his Instagram account, and some of them are really, really well done. Oh, and you like doing long exposure stuff too.
I do. Yeah. Have some new ones I hopefully will get edited and posted soon. Mostly waterfalls, but every now and then I'll do like some light trail work or something like that. But yeah, I love long exposures.
Yeah, it's always fun. So, where would you like to see your photography go? Like, where would you like to take it? Or maybe what's next in your photographic journey? Or do you have a goal or anything with it?
So actually, at the moment, this question is very hard for me to answer on the podcast because I do have something that I'm just now planning and starting to work on, but I can't really talk about it
Oh, that's okay.
here because I don't want anyone to steal my idea.
Yeah, no, that's cool. But it's always nice to have something in mind anyway.
Yeah, for sure. Man, I don't know. Like a lot of this stuff I do, purely for my own enjoyment. So there's no real agenda here. With the actual photos. Every so often I think I'm going to start like some kind of photo project to maybe bring, I don't know, some sort of conservation awareness or something like that. But I'm just not really sure like how to effectively do that, I guess. And then, it's just hard with, having a full-time job and a family and stuff to make the time for like kind of a large scale project like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So right now I just enjoy, I guess I enjoy not having anything that I have to do with it. Like a lot of my photography is somewhat spontaneous. I mean, every now and then I specifically go out to shoot at a particular location in particular light or whatever. But I do a lot of like, ooh, that looks cool. And, just pull over on the side of the road and
Yeah.
start taking pictures,
Yeah.
which I did today, actually. Um, and then, when it suits me, I guess I do like to do like photo competitions, like just little local stuff. Um, so I have one that I just entered a couple weeks ago, and like the opening or like exhibit or whatever you want to call it is in 2 days. So I'm excited to go, and I I think this year I entered 5 pictures, which is the most you could enter, and I think 4 of them, I believe, are from the iPhone.
Oh yeah.
So this will be the third year in a row now that I've entered this particular competition, and I want to say with almost 100% certainty that I'm probably the only person that enters pictures from a mobile phone.
Really?
And so it's fun to see, how they stack up against DSLR photos.
And do they know that they're from a mobile phone when they're
Nope,
entered?
they don't ask.
Yeah,
Nope.
okay. So that's cool. Yeah, because, I was talking recently, well, actually just last night about this with some folks, about taking down that barrier or taking away that stigma of separating the two types of photography from each other. It's photography.
Sure.
And the more people that realize that, the better off I think we'll all be as a photographic community. I mean, sure, it's nice to say, wow, this was done on a phone, and this is achievable on a phone. But I think the days of separating the two types are I think those days are coming to an end. The gap has been bridged. The photos that are attainable in a mobile device, whether it's a Samsung, a Huawei, an iPhone, or even the Pixel, I mean, they're all really, really nice photos. And which one you use it's subjective. It's like the Canon Nikon fight that's been going on for years. I think even that's probably coming to an end. So I think that's cool that you've entered these images into a contest, and I'll be really curious to see how they make out.
Yeah, thanks. I had good luck 2 years ago, won some ribbons or whatever in a couple of the categories. So this particular contest I enter is put on by like a nature center that's affiliated with a college that's near here. And their categories are mostly like nature themed, so it's like wildlife, landscape.
Right up your alley.
Yeah, exactly. So that's I probably like one of the main reasons I enter, and it's local, so I don't have to like send pictures out. I just take them to the place and drop them off, matted and whatnot, and it's all good.
Yeah.
So like I did good 2 years ago, and then last year, I didn't do as good. I still got like some ribbons, but it was like third place here and like a couple honorable mentions, and like. I don't know. I was like being like a baby about it. I was like upset with myself that I didn't like do better, right? So I at the end of the show, like in sometime the end of March or whatever, when they take the pictures down, I never went back to pick them up.
Oh, really?
And yeah, so a couple weeks ago, I went to the nature center to drop off the photos for the upcoming contest. And the guy that was working in there recognized me right away, which blew my mind. It's like I'm in there one time a year,
yeah.
Right? And he goes, "Oh," he's like, "Hey, you're Matt Hoffman," and I was like, "Yeah." I'm like, "You know who I am?" He goes, "Oh yeah." He's like, I've been waiting for you to come in. We still have your pictures from last year. And I was like, what? Seriously? You guys saved them? He's like, oh yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
takes me in this back room where they are collecting like all the photos and whatnot for the contest coming up. He hands me my little stack of pictures, and it turns out one of them got like a People's Choice Award, which
Oh,
like
really?
doesn't get awarded until like the very end of the show, because people that come to look at it, they can take like a little sheet of paper around and vote on their favorite pictures or
Oh,
whatever.
yeah, yeah.
So it turned out I got this award I didn't even know. That was a year ago. I just found out.
You're a rock star in there, and you didn't even know it. That's awesome.
And I guess I should end that by saying the photo that got that award was taken with the iPhone 10, and it was edited with. To be honest, it was edited with Mextures and probably Enlight.
Oh, yeah. That's amazing that you can even remember that.
Well, I specifically remember Mextures because I know exactly what overlay I put on it, because I needed to add some color to the sky to make it slightly more interesting.
Oh, yeah.
And then I was doing a so I had like the Mextures. Mextures doesn't have any masking feature, right? So if you put an overlay, it's global. It's on the whole picture.
Okay.
Right. So I had that version, and then like the original, and I layered them in Enlight, and then basically just erased, off like the foreground and like the trees and stuff. I erased the Mextures layer so that the color wouldn't be on those parts of the image.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't notice until I printed it that I missed a spot.
Oh.
And I was like, oh no. And I'm like, well, it's too late to do anything about it now. And I don't think anyone noticed, because it's actually really hard to see, but I saw it.
Yeah.
I saw it like right away, like once I got it printed, but I couldn't tell like on the phone screen. But in any case, I'll always remember how that photo was edited, just because of that like mistake that I made.
Yeah, that's crazy. Well, that's cool. Well, I guess we've got ourselves a show. So I'd just like to remind everybody that when I record these shows, I don't do them on a regular schedule like we do with Tiny Shutter, like every 2 weeks. These are recorded whenever I can line up a guest. So they may not come into your podcast app regularly or like at regular intervals, but they do come into the Apple Podcast app, Downcast, Overcast, probably any other podcatcher that you have on iOS or Android. And just search for Artful Eye Photography Interviews and look for the cover photo of a microphone. That'll be the one I'm doing. And you'll get the show notes and links and whatnot at artfulipc.com. And I'd like to thank you, Matt, for coming on again on short notice. But this was an amazing conversation, and I'm sure it will be enlightening.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be enlightening for all. You can find Matt where?
Well, let's see. Instagram, Dayflash, the Artful Eye Photography Community, Flickr, Twitter, probably somewhere else, but all of those places at M. Hoffman Photo.
Cool. And you can find me on Twitter, Macmillan_photo, on Instagram, Macmillan Photo, on Dayflash at Macmillan, and at the Artful Eye Photography Community, of course, as your host, Greg Macmillan. And thanks again, Matt, and we will see everyone next time.